Hello students, welcome back. Today we are going to discuss chapter 1, Resources and Development in Geography. Students, we have divided this chapter into two parts. These are the subtopics in part 1. So without wasting any time, let us quickly have a view on these topics which are to be covered in part 1. Here we go. Number 1, resource, the introduction. Number 2, classification of resources. Number 3, resource development. Number 4, sustainable development. Number 5, resource planning. Number 6, resource planning in India. Number 7, conservation of resources. And in the last, Agenda 21. First, let us be clear on what is a resource. Here comes the definition. Let me read. The definition of a resource is everything available in our environment that humans value and is capable of satisfying their needs, which is technologically, economically and culturally acceptable. And the explanation is, students, everything that is present in the environment, it means everything that surrounds us. Either it's a living being like human, plants, animals, sea creatures, microorganisms, etc. or non-living things like soil, matter, air, water, all those comes under a resource. Here, a resource is something that is used to satisfy human needs. It means it can be used for a purpose to satisfy our needs. Understood? In this slide, we can see the relationship between nature, technology and institutions. And the formal definition for this given mind map is, human beings interact with nature through technology and create institutions to accelerate their economic development. Children, here humans are involved in the process of transformation of things available in the environment through technology and create institutions to increase their economic development. Mainly, human beings act as, here human beings is the main resource and human beings act as an essential components of resources. Coming to this slide, we are going to discuss how a resource should be. In order to satisfy the needs, a resource should satisfy these three criteria. It means a resource should follow all these three criteria. Number 1, economically feasible. Number 2, culturally acceptable. Number 3, technologically accessible. Coming to number 1, economically feasible. Economically feasible means it must not be too expensive. Like we must not spend more money on a particular thing for our own purpose. So for example for this economically feasible means, if we need to use electricity for a large buildings like shopping malls, shopping complex, theatres, hospitals, so for such buildings we cannot use solar energy. As we all know, solar energy is abundant in the universe and it is free of cost also. But we cannot use for that, we cannot change it a resource and use for our needs, because the solar cells, the solar panels which are used to transform solar energy into an electricity is made up of a silver lining, and that particular silver lining is too expensive, which a normal man cannot afford it, and practically it can't be done. And number 2, culturally acceptable. Here culturally acceptable means This type of resource should be accepted by the people within their countries. Within their countries. For example, the skin and fur of wild animals such as bear, tiger, deer were accepted in those days once upon a time by some people, some individuals, right? But not now. But it is not acceptable culturally in the world. You know, right? Now it's a crime. So it is not acceptable by the people in their countries, and so this type of resource cannot be considered as it was not acceptable by the people. So culturally acceptable should be a must. Number 3, technologically accessible. As we have discussed, as electricity from solar panels were expensive, today we are using water from dams for electricity, and for that purpose we are using technology. Even to use water in our daily life by using pumps or motors, like that thing which we are using in our daily life also, we are using some sort of technology like motors, pipelines, which can be used with electricity or without electricity, right? And those things comes under technologically accessible, and here technology plays an important role in the resources. Classification of resources. Here resources were classified under 4 bases, and they are on the basis of origin, on the basis of exhaustibility, on the basis of ownership, and the last on the basis of status and development. Here in these slides, we can see how these 4 bases were broadly classified into different categories. Number 1, on the basis of origin, which is further classified into biotic resources and abiotic resources. Number 2, on the basis of exhaustibility, which is also classified into renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Number 3, on the basis of ownership. Here it is broadly classified into 4 types. They are individual resources, community resources, national resources and international resources. The last on the basis of development. And here as follows. First one, potential. Second one, developed stock. Number 3, reserves. And number 4, stock. Now let us get into the detailed description. Coming to the first one, on the basis of origin. It is broadly classified into 2 categories, and they are biotic and abiotic resources. Children, here you can see the diagrammatic representation for biotic and abiotic resources. The other name, biotic means living things, abiotic means non-living things. Biotics means, bio means life. So, these biotic resources are obtained from living organisms like humans, animals, plants, birds, microorganisms, etc. Whereas abiotic resources, likely non-living things. And these abiotic resources are those which are obtained from non-living things like soil, air, water, metal, rocks, right? And the formal definition for these both biotic and abiotic factors. It means biotic and abiotic resources. Okay. Biotic factors are living or once living organisms in the ecosystem. Once living means in the past, right? And this THIS, this it is wrong here. Here it should be THESE. So these are obtained from the biosphere and are capable of reproduction. Example, animals, birds, plants, etc. Next one, abiotic resources. And these resources are obtained from the lithosphere, atmosphere and hydrosphere. Example, air, water, sunlight, minerals, etc. Next one, on the basis of exhaustibility. So here, these resources are classified into renewable and non-renewable resources. You can see a picture. Here also it is represented in the picture form, in which both renewable and non-renewable resources are there. Right. Here renewable means replaced. Understood, children? So first let us talk about renewable energy. A renewable resource, it is a resource which can be used repeatedly and replaced naturally, which is always found abundant in our environment and that never runs out. To say it simply, a renewable resource is one that can be used repeatedly and that will not at all run out. Because, why? Because it is naturally replaced. It is abundantly available in our environment. It has an endless supply, such as solar energy, wind energy, biomass energy, wildlife such as animals, fish, oxygen, forests, etc. Everything is abundant and around us, and even though we use it repeatedly, constantly, it will not run out. Understood? Now come to the non-renewable energy. Here, non-renewable resources, it means it is also a kind of natural resource only. It's also a natural resource. Why we call it as non-renewable energy means it cannot be replaced. It cannot be replaced once we use it repeatedly. It means they get exhausted once we use. You all have an idea, I think so. Once we use a fuel or gas, it will get evaporated after use. We cannot regenerate that, right? And that cannot be renewed once they are used up. And this type of resources can be regenerated, but it can be I'm not saying that it is impossible to regenerate. It can be regenerated, but typically it takes millions of years to develop. So they are found beneath the earth, such as oil, natural gas, coal, which humans regularly use to produce energy. As it is found beneath the earth and as it takes millions of years to renew again, it takes such a long time, and that is why those are considered as a rare product, and that sort of resources are known as non-renewable resources. And the formal definition for these resources are: first one, renewable resources. Renewable resources are the ones which can be renewed by physical, chemical or mechanical. It can also be called as replenishable resources. Example, oxygen, water, solar energy, forest, wildlife, etc. Next one, non-renewable resources. And non-renewable resources are the ones that take a very long geological time to form. Some of the resources like metals are recyclable, and some like fossil fuels cannot be recycled and gets exhausted after using. Example, petroleum, natural gas, etc. Understood, children? Children, the next classification is on the basis of ownership, and these are classified into 4 categories: individual resource, community resources, national resources and international resources. First one, individual resources. And these individual resources are owned privately by individuals. Individual in the sense people own plots, houses, wells. If we look into villages, people there own lands. It means like agricultural land, farming lands. And it will be a private property for an individual. Second one, community resources. These resources are owned by the community. In the other sense, it is a property which is owned by the people of community or a group of people. Example, picnic spots, playgrounds, wells in the villages, graveyards and etc. And the next one is national resources. These resources comes under nation, means which belongs to the nation. They will be owned by the nation or a country. For example, railways and water resources, wildlife, GT roads, canals, etc. like territorial water. Territorial water means the oceanic area. Understood? Which lies below 200 nautical miles. Okay? And the last one is international resources. And these international resources will be regulated by international institutions. For example, if the oceanic resource lies within 200 nautical miles of the nation, it comes under national resources. But if it lies beyond 200 nautical miles, that area will not belong to any individual or any nation, and no one can use these resources without the permission of international institutions or some organizations. Okay. Children, the last type of resources are on the basis of status and development. And these are further broadly classified into 4 categories. First one, potential resources. Second one, developed resources. Third one, stock. And number 4th one, reserves. So, first one, potential resources. Potential resources are the ones which are found abundantly in our area but have not been utilized by us properly. It means, for example, people living in Rajasthan and Gujarat have enormous potential for the development of solar energy and wind energy. But here you have to notice they have enormous energy available in their region, but they are not using it. Second one, developed. Developed resource. These resources depend on technology and the level of their availability. And these resources will be surveyed and determined. How they will determine? They will be surveying this type of resources. It means the developed resources. But it will be determined qualitatively and quantitatively. Means they check the quality and the quantity. Quantity in the sense the amount of availability. So that resources will be, after surveyed, those resources will be determined qualitatively and quantitatively for the utilization, means for human use. Okay? Yeah. Next, come to stock. These resources present in the environment which is surveyed, these also will be surveyed. Okay? These resources which is present in the environment will be surveyed, and these resources will have an ability also. Ability means efficiency. They have efficiency to satisfy our needs. Our needs means human needs. Okay? But here also I am stopping here with a but, because we do not utilize it. For example, water. Everybody knows that water is a compound of two inflammable gases. Hydrogen and oxygen is a combination of the water, right? Combines and forms water. In that particular compounds, hydrogen is a rich source of energy. It is really useful for the development of a resource, and it is a very rich resource for the energy. Rich source of energy, right? Not resource. But we humans do not have such advanced technology. At present, we are not having such type of technology to utilize hydrogen, which is available abundantly in the environment. And the last one is reserves. These resources were surveyed. All the resources will be surveyed, right? The same way, these resources were surveyed and we can use them with the present available technology. It means the technology what we are having at present is more than enough to make it as utilizable, right? The present technology, by using the present technology, we can use these reserves. We know the techniques also, we know how to use also, but we have not started to utilize. Till yet we have not started to utilize that sort of resources. Maybe they can use in the future, and those type of resources may be used in the future, right? For example, water in the dams and forests also. And the formal definition for these resources are, let me read children, potential resources. Potential resources are the ones which are found in a region but have not been utilized. Example, wind and solar energy is abundant in Rajasthan and Gujarat, but so far these have not been developed properly. Second one, developed resources. These developed resources are surveyed resources whose quality and quantity have been determined for utilization. Example, wind power, hydropower, solar power, uranium, etc. Coming to the next slide, third one, stock resources. Stock resources are the ones which have the potential to satisfy our needs, but human beings do not have the appropriate technology to use them. Okay, example, inflammable gases. I said already, right, those things. Hydrogen and oxygen are the components of water which can be used as a source of energy. And the last but not the least, reserves. Reserves are the subset of the stock which can be put into use with the help of existing technology, but their use has not been started. And the water in the dams, forests, etc. are the examples of the reserves which can be used in the future. Now children, with this, let me end today's session. So, let us have a quick recap. Today, we have learned what is a resource, the relationship between nature, technology and institutions. And the next, we have discussed how a resource should be, like economically feasible, culturally acceptable and technologically accessible. So, this resource should fall under these three categories. What are the three categories? Economically feasible, culturally acceptable and technologically accessible. Coming to the next thing, we came across the classification of resources, right? Yeah. First one, on the basis of origin. On the basis of origin is further classified into two categories. and those are biotic and abiotic resources. Second one, on the basis of exhaustibility, under which renewable resources and non-renewable resources falls. Third one, on the basis of ownership. Under this, which the subcategories follows, and those subcategories are individual resources, community resources, national resources and international resources. And the last one, number 4, on the basis of development, on the basis of status and development. So, which is further classified into 4 categories, right? Potential resources, developed resources, stocks and reserves. Children, I hope you all have at present now. You might have an idea of what is a resource and the classification of resource and how a resource should be used and how should it satisfy the human needs. Okay. Now I am going to give you a home activities. Sorry guys. So in this home activity, you have to prepare a mind map on classification of resources. Classification of resources are those 4 bases, right? On the basis of origin, exhaustibility, development. You have to draw a mind map, frame your own mind map, whatever shape it may be. It's your wish. You frame a mind map with all these types of resources, and then it's there on those classifications also. You have to frame the 4 bases of resources and their classifications in a form of mind map in an A4 sheet. So you draw it in an A4 sheet and file them. So okay children, let us meet in the next session with the same energy level. And thank you dears. Have an astounding day. Bye.